Hi, my lovely students. So for this video, we are going to discuss Chapter 2 Matrices Form 5, Part 5. So our learning standard for this video, explain the characteristic of identity matrix. So what are the characteristics of identity matrix? So A times 1 is equals to A, 1 times A is equals to A. So when 1 multiplied with any number A, its product is A. When a matrix is multiplied with matrix A, its product is matrix A. Then the first matrix is the identity matrix. What are the characteristics of an identity matrix? The matrix 1001 or 100010001 is known as identity matrix and is denoted by I. So, identity matrices are square matrices. Identity matrix I, when multiplied with a matrix A, will result in matrix A. Matrix A times with multiply with identity matrix equals to identity matrix times matrix A is equals to A. So write the identity matrix based on the order given below. So this is the answer. This is the identity matrix for 1 by 1 matrix. This is for 2 by 2 matrix. This is for 3 by 3 matrix. And this is 5 by 5 matrix. As you can see, number one is right like this in the form of diagonal. Alright. So this is your homework, self-practice 2.2D. Okay, for this self-practice, only have 3 questions. Okay, this is our second learning standard for this video. Explain the meaning of inverse matrix and hence determine the inverse matrix for a 2 by 2 matrix. So what is the meaning of inverse matrix? AB equals to BA equals to I. Remember, I is identity matrix. So if multiplication of matrix A and matrix B produce an identity matrix I, then matrix B is the inverse of matrix A and vice versa. That means if matrix and you multiply, you get identity matrix, so that one of the matrix is the inverse matrix of the matrix. For example, if this is matrix A, then B is actually the inverse of matrix A. If and only if A multiplied with B, you get identity matrix. So multiplication of matrix A and inverse matrix of A, this is how we write an inverse matrix. So this is the inverse matrix of A will result in identity matrix I. So this is a matrix when multiplied with its inverse or its inverse time we multiply with the matrix is equals to I. So determine whether the following matrix is the inverse matrix of this matrix. Explain your answer. So in order to know whether this is the inverse matrix of this matrix or not, we just multiply the two matrix. If we get identity matrix, then the matrix is the inverse matrix. So for A, this is the matrix 4172 multiplied with matrix A. So we get this. So the product is not an identity matrix. We didn't get the identity matrix here. So 41 negative 72 is not the inverse of matrix 4172 because the product of these two matrices is not an identity matrix. So for example B, so when you multiply the matrix here with B, the result is identity matrix. So this is identity matrix. So we can conclude that 2, -1, -7, 4 is the matrix, is the inverse matrix of 4172 because the product of these two matrices is an identity matrix. Okay. Next, this is your homework. Self-practice 2.2e. Only one question here. So, thank you. See you in the next video.